Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to try real hard to cover the events that unfold in Wes Craven's 1991 film, The People Under the Stairs. The effort comes from the fact that I estimate approximately 5.8 billion individual events take place over the course of these 102 minutes. Imagine wanting to avoid an eviction from your home while also being financially incapable of getting your mother treatment for her cancer. After reaching the end of your rope and finding yourself willing to do anything, you're offered the chance to improve your situation from thin slicing a single bean for dinner to Scrooge McDuck-style swimming in piles of money because you're so flush with cash. All you have to do is commit a simple burglary. It happens every day. Sounds like a great deal, but what if you inadvertently stumble upon a sealed-off house of horrors owned by a couple of freaks who give off strong sibling spouse vibes? I mean, as a 13-year-old, I'd imagine it would be pretty unnerving for you, but you'd be in there with frickin' Ving Rhames, so I don't know. How do you think you would stack up against Gimp Daddy? Leave a comment to let me know, and as always, feel free to hit the like button if you enjoy the video. It supposedly helps out a lot. Let's get to it. We open on a voiceover of a tarot reading, and things are really not looking that good. We then transition to the recipient of the reading, Poindexter, aka Fool, attempting to relieve himself of his ignorance and wishing he could do more to help his sick mother. Not to pile on too much, but he's then surprised to find a man in the house, Leroy, his sister Ruby's friend, who then sits him down to inform him that they're scheduled for an eviction tomorrow. You see, they're 3 days late on rent, and the owners are looking for any pretense they can use to bounce them from the property so they can tear it down. Leroy loves to help, but since nothing in life comes easy, he offers Fool the chance to earn the money he needs. We get a little more context around this after transitioning to the landlord and lady, Daddy enjoying his supper of meat and bone, and his trad wife mother, who confirms through commentary that they're looking to build some higher rent condominiums on their various properties. The next morning, as Fool returns to his home in the scummiest slum building on the block, it becomes apparent why Leroy insists to Ruby that bringing her young brother under his employ is his best prospect for making that cheddar, which is what the kids call money. He drives this home by sneeringly remarking not only that their mother's cancer is easily treatable for anyone who has the funds, but that the target of his larcenous desires happens to be the shitbag landlords who own the building. You see, he happened upon a piece of mail at the liquor store they own that had the landlord's home address, and the letter's contents expressed an interest in purchasing the recipient's collection of golden coins. Back at the freak house, Mother dresses Alice, her slave daughter, and does her best to teach some manners. She seems to pass the exam until Mother notices a fork is missing. The nature of their relationship is elucidated when Mommy wonders if she's gonna have to smack a hoe, but Alice gets an assist via the vent from a strange hand. Alas, the danger has not been fully navigated, as Daddy then comes home with a tension headache from the stress of his liquor store being robbed. He seeks relief from the beating of Alice, while the wall occupant moans in anguish. Meanwhile, Leroy cases the joint from outside and sends Fool in to get some information about the interior. With no response up front, he slides around to the side door, but only when he starts messing with the landscaping does Mother emerge, in order to slap him with an instant rejection that she upholds even in the face of the hard sell and bathroom request. He reports back that they have screens and padlocks on all windows, but he has no info on the inside because he couldn't get in. Unwilling to do a job without an appropriate amount of intel, Spencer decides to take a crack at sweet-talking his way in. He suits up and approaches the house, insisting that he has to check a meter inside that she doesn't even know about, and that, as a gas man, he has a legal right to come in. This convinces her to acquiesce, providing him the access he so richly desires. But while he's putting in work, we learn that Leroy is concerned that Spence may try to use this opportunity to cut him out of the job. This fear is reinforced when Mother leaves by herself shortly after, implying that Spencer's inside the house completely alone. In a panic, he pulls fully into the driveway to see if they can scope out what's going down. On the way in, Fool has some doubts about committing his first felony, but since he's inside, he's technically already done it. So what difference does it make now? Inside, they find locks everywhere and heavy doors. However, with just a little effort and the appropriate angle,
I done busted this house, Cherry.
Gross. They are immediately attacked by a dog, and it won't stop no matter how much Fool begs it. They do manage to give the good boy the slip and lock themselves inside for safety. As they get their bearings, a noise from upstairs draws their attention. It's a very tense situation, which is obvious from their acting. So Leroy forges ahead on his own while Fool waits in the living room. However, a curious noise draws Fool to the basement door. He peers through and sees Spencer's clipboard, so he unlocks the door and goes down the stairs, but only until he hears another strange noise.
The
against you.
But apparently he kind of is, because he lets the threat of being deemed a chicken shit, which he only imposes upon himself, compel him to head back into the basement. He takes a look around and mostly finds old building supplies and sporting goods. But then he finds a tube TV that's still working. When a dust plume threatens to aggravate his allergies, he turns to leave and trips over Spencer's dead body. He recognizes that Spencer is gripping a gold coin in his cold dead hand, right before something drags him toward the wall. Fool pulls him back, only to discover that his hand has been munched upon. Then it dawns on him that the TV was there for the entertainment benefit of the people under the stairs, which, as it turns out, is not a metaphor. The mysterious moaner then jumps out to introduce himself, and Fool makes for the door. He's released by Alice, who disappears into the house. Before Fool can pursue her, Mother and Father return, so he runs upstairs to warn Leroy. When he finds him, he's laying in the hallway, ass to the wind. Turns out he's listening very carefully to a strange sound wafting through the ducts. Fool warns him of the owner's return and Spencer's apparent death by fear, so they run down double quick to confirm they're still barricaded in before trying for the front door, which they find to be humorously electrified. As Prince works on busting his way in, Leroy convinces Fool to stand out as bait so he can beat off the dog. But when he arrives, they learn that Prince doesn't like the tender meat, and when Leroy prairie dogs to see what's happening, he gets clamped down. Fool tries to tug him to safety, reaching the knob and letting the electricity flow through their bodies. They rush back upstairs to hide, and Leroy finds a good spot, but just for him, tells Fool to shove off right before lockdown is initiated and Daddy begins to clear the upstairs. The wall creeper pops out, startling Leroy into the hallway where he is shot many times, satiating the psychopathic couple's bloodlust. Fool creeps out and watches as they tap dance on ya boy's corpse, and when he returns to the hall, he's been gifted sight and led towards safety. Behind the vent, he essentially finds a whole second house with a pathway out. When he emerges in an adjacent hallway, he finds Alice standing meekly in a bathroom they hopefully no longer use. After introductions, Fool discovers she has no knowledge of the outside world because there's no way out of the house. Despite the failure of many others like him, he is determined to escape. She further explains that the people under the stairs were all prospective brothers who couldn't live up to the standards set for them, so they were mutilated and cast away. When the moaning starts back up, she confirms that's Roach, a cellar boy who escaped into the walls and is hunted by Big Daddy, mostly when his moaning interrupts Gimp time, which he takes personal offense to. Daddy has to place a bookmark in his progress because police arrive at the house. Turns out the van in their driveway was identified as possibly being related to a recent liquor store robbery. Fool tries to get their attention from upstairs, but no sound escapes. Outside, they claim the van just happened to be there when they got home, and they saw a couple of men walking down the street. The officers go to scope out the rest of the neighborhood, leaving the evidence behind and unsecured, so they help themselves. This reveals the likely presence of a boy in the house, who smells delicious. Inside, Prince has decided to settle for what he can get, and chases Fool into a room where he is repelled with a falcon punch. Daddy then tries to blast his way in, but gets his skull caved in. Then Roach pops out and grabs Fool before dipping out. He's led through the back halls with Prince in hot pursuit. They ultimately shake their tail by distracting him with a toy and sending him down a chute that Roach had built in his free time, just in case. This ejects him right out to where Mother and Daddy are located, and the homemade plushie indicates that the filthy little boys have gotten to Alice. Sure enough, they do emerge in her room, where the new friends get to know each other through intense, sustained eye contact. This is because Roach's bad part was his smart mouth, so they cut out his tongue, which is why he can't talk good. When the parents bust in and see what these little wall rats have been up to, Mother lays down a final verdict.
What do I do with the mommy?
It is time to clean house!
Literally, as they offer Fool a quarter to help them tidy up the place. Then they toss his ass in as Mother supervises Alice as she cleans up the blood, while also losing her damn mind. When she's finished, Alice is put to bed and informed of their intent to kill Fool. Downstairs, we find that Daddy likes it raw, but is also incredibly wasteful. There's still a lot of good meat on that torso. He then sends Fool into the pen before leaving. But in a twist, the people under the stairs turn out to be superstitious ghouls, retreating at the sight of Leroy's apparent rebirth. It turns out it was just Roach fooling on them to facilitate an escape. Once they are safely tucked away inside the furnace, a strange sentence to utter, Fool sees that Roach didn't make it out of their altercation unscathed, and also that he has some of them golden coins. He gives them in exchange for Fool's promise to help get Alice out of here, and then he expires. Since it's bad luck to break a promise to a dead man, Fool begins clawing his way upstairs. Prince's exasperated attempts to get at him distracts Daddy long enough for Fool to pop out in Alice's room and rupture his nutsack before scurrying back into the wall. Daddy attempts to solve this problem by using Roach to warm the house, sending a comforting smoke billowing softly through the ductwork. This prompts the young escapees to bust out, which has to be hell on the HVAC efficiency. Then they make their way through as quietly as possible to try to avoid getting shot. And when they hear Prince coming again, Fool decides it's time to take a stand and gets into an unlikely wrestling match with a dog that's his own size. The noise allows Daddy to locate them and start probing the wall with his bayonet, which eventually finds purchase inside Prince's body. But since that tactic has never worked before, he's too overcome with excitement and dances a little jig for Mama. But she insists on seeing proof with her own eyes, and they lament the results as the kids make it to the attic, the one room in the house with an open window. Fool suggests jumping into the koi pond below. Alice is hesitant, however, and this results in them getting split up when Daddy runs in, forcing Fool's hand and forgetting himself in his zeal by firing off his gun into open air. Back at home, Fool and Ruby get confirmation that the gold is enough for both their rent and their mom's operation, after they trade them in for cash. Then the elder relays some spicy rumors about Mother and Daddy.
That brother-sister act you messed with are evil, plain and simple.
Brother and sister?
Brother and sister.
After a bit, Fool takes a moment to make proactive amends with his mother for what he must do next. Step outside to a payphone to call the police and report a case of abuse. But when the police arrive, everything is cleaned up and there aren't even any kids around. Plus, the lovely owners are just so damn charming. After the officers leave, the pair resets the house and goes to get ready for bed. Along the way, Mother expresses concern about the police leaving the back door open so long, risking someone escaping, but not expecting an infiltration. Fool selects himself a nice hefty bludgeon and creeps upstairs, inching toward the sound of evening prayers, but they were goofing on him. Gimp Daddy jumps out and Fool gouges his eyes the way he likes, before blasting Mother's uterus into her throat. They chase him downstairs where he made like he got away, but his intent was never to leave. Instead, he ventures up through the chimney and releases Alice from the inside. He arranges to meet her at the special window. Before leaving, he informs Alice that she has no ties to her parents, as they are siblings who kidnapped her when she was young. She reciprocates by informing Fool that the pond has been drained and there are now bombs wired up all over the joint. Thinking quickly, they head to the roof and work to attract attention, using Daddy's eagerness to harm them as an opportunity to brick him in the face. Then the pair Donkey Kong's mother, herniating a disc at her C6 on the way down to the basement. Fool tells Alice how to get out from here and circles back to take care of some unfinished business. On her way out, Alice is confronted. Empowered by the truth, she finds her voice and sass-talks her mother. Convinced the boys have despoiled their little girl, Daddy is given the green light to kill them all. As the search begins, they hear someone riling the basement boys. When he goes to check it out, he gets drawn down upon, but manages to hit the stair slide and turn the tables. Mother is distracted by a knock at the door, which she answers to find Ruby there to do an activism. But they're really busy right now. Now Daddy's really gonna do it, for real this time, until the Morlocks blind him with their flashlights. Then there's another knock at the door from someone claiming to be the police, responding to reports of gunfire. But it's those dang activists again, and this time they brought the whole community. Regardless, Mother prepares to bust, but is thwarted when Alice drops in and smashes her face. Downstairs, through some careful maneuvering, the cast-offs use Fool to unlock the coop and then drag him in to provide unexpected protection. While Daddy tends to another head injury, Fool bridges the alarm on the embalming machine to open its door and access the riches inside. Upstairs, they get all separated again so Alice can have a showdown with Mother, and they really work through some stuff. Unfortunately, their closure is thwarted when the folks under the stairs become the folks at approximately stair level. In her panic, Mother rounds a corner and runs right into Alice's knife. She then becomes a victim to her own desire to help these wayward young men. They toss her into the basement, and when Daddy sees that they're not in the pen, he becomes concerned about his stash. He goes to check the vault where Fool engages in a standoff, daring him to make a move. And when he does, he blows him sky high. The money erupts out into the night air, gently floating down to the people as the ghouls wander off into an unknown world, in what could be viewed as a sort of mutant Rumspringa. I have a lot of history with People Under the Stairs, and also a lot of thoughts to sort through. My first experience with this movie occurred during a sleepover with a friend when I was a young lad. His older sister and her friends had rented one of the Faces of Death films along with this one. I remember hearing all kinds of crazy crap coming in from the other room, and it left a lasting impression about how creepy and twisted this movie was, despite the fact that I didn't actually see it. When I did see it for the first time as an adult, I was somewhat put off by the cornier elements of the movie. It was not at all what I expected. It was truly anchored by a creeptastic performance from Mother and Daddy, but then had a bunch of peripheral elements that I just didn't think matched up with the tone. Having watched it again now, I think I have more of an appreciation for the film and also a better understanding of where I think it went wrong. There was something about the overall combination of elements that diluted the final effect. I think the film overall would have worked well if it was creepy and humorous or cheesy, while allowing the overall theme and structure of the story to imply the overarching message they were trying to achieve. Coming out and directly saying it weakens its impact, and also adds a separate layer that just doesn't work, because it feels like the cheesy activism clashes with the self self-aware cheesiness of the slapstick portions, if that makes sense. Overall, it felt like there was something here, but it was presented with a degree of naivety that you don't expect from Wes Craven, the master of horror.
Look, you can see the lights of the ghetto from here.
If it had more of a Last House on the Left or The Hills Have Eyes vibe, I think it would have worked much better. It seems like most of my complaints fall under a single broader category, which is that this project overall comes across as unpolished. I'm going to give some examples here, but also want to go into detail about one part in particular. So here are some examples of parts that didn't seem to fit well in terms of how everything was laid out. The music works really well in some areas, but is really grating and out of character in others. The end credit song also really anchors this movie to a particular time period, dating it unnecessarily. The idea that Spencer was scared to death? Why? Leroy laying on the floor and ignoring Fool calling out to him because he was too focused on listening to the vent was just weird. The ending back and forth also strained suspension of disbelief. There were too many pieces set up that had to be addressed to get the characters into position. For instance, there was an entire crowd of people outside but doing nothing to help. They also made a point of showing how Ruby ends up outside and cut off so they can get Alice alone with Mother. But this completely glosses over the fact that Grandpa Booker had been there as well, but then disappeared. There was also some strange but funny ADR included throughout the movie.
Yeah, look at her. What they doing to her there?
Some of these elements point to something I've brought up before, around directors creating believable scenarios in their movies by actually working through it in real time without direction to verify if it's plausible. I'm going to illustrate what I mean through the nut-busting scene. We've established that the antagonists are at the point where they just want to kill. In this scene, Daddy is in Alice's room all worked up and violent. In a final attempt to help get them out of there, Fool pops out of the vent to physically confront Daddy. A child runs across a room to confront a grown man who is intent on harming him, and is able to freely unload on his gonads without repercussion before retreating to the other side of the room. He then pauses here as Daddy lunges for him, but lamely sidesteps, resulting in Daddy face planting into the wall and basically taking himself out. All of this scripted nonsense could have been avoided by taking the time to set up the scenario and let the actors play through it naturally to see if it made any sense. This seems to be especially important when you have kids taking on adults. Another quick example is from the ending sequence in Halloween Resurrection, where the protagonist is stuck in a burning shed with Michael Myers. She would love nothing more than to get away. Oh, but she has some cords and an audio mixer on her. Nothing about this looks believable. Have the actress try to get up. If she can do so easily, you need to make some changes to your set piece. If, like so many things in life, you want her escape and rescue to rely on the presence of a bow staff wielding Busta Rhymes, then make it really seem like she can't get up, unless Busta is there to explode Michael's sack with a live wire. This lack of preparation, along with the other points of sloppiness I mentioned before, are what I mean by the film feeling unpolished. If you're not careful, things like this can take your audience out of the moment, remove any sense of danger, and also possibly diminish the presence of your antagonist. Just to clarify, I don't think this necessarily makes the movie bad, or that it's a bad movie. And there's a good chance the things I pointed out imbue the movie with a nostalgic charm for people who saw it when it first came out. Before we go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my donors, memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. Any donation unlocks uncensored movie reviews of Life Force, Under the Skin, and Possessor, with others to be added over time. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.